thank you for joining us here today. I'm Joe Ceci, MLA for Calgary-Buffalo, and we're in Calgary-Elbow. And I'm joined by our fabulous Alberta NDP candidate for Calgary-Elbow, Samir Kayande. We're on the traditional territory, the signatories of Treaty 7, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. Doug Schweitzer resigned from his seat in Calgary-Elbow back in August. Ever since, the residents of Calgary-Elbow are wondering when they would once again get an MLA for their area. But Premier Danielle Smith poured cold water on that when she announced there would be no by-election in Calgary-Elbow. She's going to trigger a by-election in Medicine Hat. But instead of running both of those by-elections, one here and one in Medicine Hat, she's leaving this seat empty for 9 months. This means tens of thousands of Calgarians will have no representation in the legislature, while Smith rams through her plans for more chaos, more cuts, and more conflict. My office is happy to assist the residents of Calgary-Elbow where and when we can, but it should never have come to this. The people of Calgary-Elbow deserve full-time representation. In fact, during a similar situation in 2014, Danielle Smith agreed with us. Let's see what she has to say.
I think it's quite telling that Mr. Prentice has said he's not going to run in the seat that was left when Alison Redford ended up retiring. That suggests to me that he actually doesn't think he can win in that seat. So he's going to initiate a by-election somewhere else. So we're going to have at least 2 by-elections. There's a couple of members who are thinking of going federal, so maybe we'll have 4 by-elections. There's a couple of other cabinet ministers we hear who might retire early. So this could almost be like a bit of a midterm race where we get to cast judgment on the PC government, and we are looking forward to sending the PCs a message. I think I'll...
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Danielle. As you can see, Danielle Smith was once very critical of the exact same thing she's doing today in exactly the same riding. This is the height of hypocrisy and cynicism. And it's fundamentally anti-democratic. You can't deny Calgarians the right to vote just because you're worried that they'll vote against you. The only other example of this kind of cherry picking we could find was Justin Trudeau in 2018, who called one by-election despite there being 4 empty seats in Parliament. Copying Justin Trudeau is a pretty weird place for Danielle Smith to be. But more importantly, I've been on the doorsteps for months, and let me tell Danielle Smith what's going on in Calgary-Elbow. Families are stressed out about the cost of living. Food, housing, gasoline, insurance, utilities are all getting more expensive. In many cases, it's the UCP that's driving these prices up, while Alberta workers have the slowest wage growth in Canada. Calgary families are also extremely worried about the chaos that the UCP has created in our healthcare system. We're losing family doctors. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Our ambulances are in total crisis. And Danielle Smith is promising even more chaos. And of course, Calgarians want to know what the long-term plan is for the economy. How are we going to build on the strengths of our energy sector? How are we going to create a resilient economy that creates good-paying jobs and opportunities? And everywhere I go, Calgarians tell me that they don't want the Sovereignty Act that Danielle Smith is touting. They know that it's a recipe for chaos, to destroy investor confidence, destroy jobs, and stifle our economy at a critical moment. This is what families are talking about in Calgary, and they deserve a voice in the legislature. Danielle Smith knows that denying Calgarians a voice is wrong. She said it herself. She must call a by-election immediately. Thank you, and we're ready to take your questions.
All right, thank you, Samir. We'll now go to questions. Just a reminder for those joining us on the phone to use the *9 function, and for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. We'll first start with any questions in person.
I just have a question about a Leger poll that came out today. It suggests the race between the NDP and the UCP is neck and neck, but there's more support for Rachel Notley right now, about 36% to 22%. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Does this give you a little momentum going into the Danielle Smith's premiership?
I'd love to jump in. You know, I've known Rachel and run with her starting in 2015. People know and understand and get Rachel. She is dedicated. She's of Alberta, and they know her work when she was a premier too. Common sense, listens to evidence, understands science, and works with her caucus. So, you know, there have been a number of polls, of course, showing we're either ahead or they're either ahead by a point or two. It's going to be a horse race. It's going to be critical that we continue to get to the doorsteps, get to as many people as we can to explain our role, our vision, and sign them up as NDP supporters. Samir, has been to, how many doors you've been to? You tell people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been, I've knocked on over 2,000 doors, like talked to live people over the last 6 months. And what people are telling me is that they are concerned about healthcare, they're concerned about their economic security, they're concerned about the cost of living, they want jobs, and they're concerned about their kids' education. And on none of these issues is the UCP offering a solution. So regardless of whatever the polls say, we know it's going to be a tight election, and we believe that that Calgary-Elbow voters and Alberta voters will be drawn to our values and our embrace of the issues that are facing Albertans today.
Do you have a follow-up? And any other questions in person? All right, we'll now go to the phones. Our first question comes from Lisa Johnson from the Edmonton Journal. Go ahead, Lisa, your line is open.
Thanks for taking my question. I'm just wondering, I mean, that I presume was from 2014. But are you making an apples-to-apples comparison here? Because at that point in time, Redford had resigned as premier in March. She was still a sitting member of the Legislative Assembly, but her seat wasn't vacant at that point in time. I guess I'm not super clear when exactly that clip that you just played aired, and whether or not you can explain this is like apples-to-apples comparison.
No, go ahead. Okay, absolutely. The issue is that Elbow doesn't have representation today. And in 2014, there was also a lot of chaos brought about by conservative infighting. And there were issues with by-elections that were not being called. And Danielle Smith was properly letting the government know that it wasn't okay that people didn't have representation. The citizens of Calgary-Elbow don't have representation right now. And that's something that we think is really important, and something that the citizens of Calgary-Elbow think is really important, and is really important to the citizens of Calgary.
Do you have a follow-up, Lisa?
I'm wondering, could you give a little bit more context around that clip that you played? When did that clip air exactly?
2014?
It aired in 2014.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll do one last pass for questions. Just a reminder for those on the phone to use *9, and for those on Zoom to use the raise hand function. And any more questions in person? All right, with that, we'll wrap today. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Watching. Alberta's NDP is working hard to build Alberta's future and to build a future that involves all Albertans. The momentum is building. If you want to be part of it, join us at albertasndp.ca.